Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to do some decals now in the level editor. We're going to use the same level we were just working on, and we're just going to put lots and lots of decals and try to make it look as polished as we can. We're not going to worry about texturing anymore, unless we really need to change something, but we're just going to put lots of decals on here. Let's frame that with F. Focus on whatever I want. Let's bring up the decal list right there. All right, so we're going to use this filter, Rust. So there are a bunch of, this is the decal list. There are a lot of decals in the game. Based on which textures you use, like the textures that start with IND, you can see a lot of these up here start with IND. Those actually go with the decals that start with either Rust or TN for Titan. Now you can mix and match these as much as you want, but we generally have used these sort of pairings, and they share some textures and material similarities, so that's why we're going to be using the Rust and TN or Titan textures. So we're going to use this filter up here to just do Rust ones for now. And let's say we want a nice edge decal, or actually let's do a bevel along the back. And we'll do a nice vertical decal on the back. Let's start with, let's see, we want bevels up here. Now all the decals that align to one side or another generally line up to the bottom, and then we use this rotation alignment over here to line them up the way we want. So let's just go with this one right here. That looks good enough. It's a bluish one, but that's all right. It doesn't look as blue in the game, so these actually match up nicely. So now we want to line this up. So the first thing we want to use is alignment. This cycles through a bunch of different alignment options, and normally it's center, and then the first time you push it, it'll be edge right. Now this one, when you push edge right, it lines up on the right side, the right, bottom, the left, and the top. So we don't want it on the right, we actually want it on the left. And you'll get used to clicking on this button pretty often. So that's nice. Let's put something on the back wall. We've got that selected. We don't have to mark it if it's the only selection we have. If we don't have anything else marked, we can scroll down. We're going to use a V-bar. I'm going to cycle through a bunch of these. So we're in the decal list over here, and we're going to ignore most of the decal list. This stuff over here doesn't matter. It's only for editing the decals themselves. Importing, scaling, that's only for importing from 3ds Max or other standards, anything that can export an OBJ file. And then this geometry stuff is also just for editing the decal. But we're not going to edit decals, we're actually just going to be placing them. That means we only need to worry about this stuff up here. We're not going to change that. And then marking sides, getting the decal, and applying. These are the ones that are relevant to actually applying the decals. And one other thing, you'll often see there's decals that have no textures here. That's because there's a bug in the system that doesn't let some of these have level textures on them, and they're also decal textures, and they're just sort of a separate system, and it doesn't share nicely with this view. But when we place them, let's apply it right there, it looks fine. So let's actually find one. It's fine, let's do this one instead. It's just a little different, it's got that blue texture on it instead. All right, so that's decals there. Let's put a nice border all the way around. Actually, not all the way. Just do it on the sides. So we're gonna select those two. We're gonna do H bar. Now, even though these are horizontal, I know that there are some of them towards the bottom of these H bars that line up 2 meters on each side. And this geometry right here is 2 meters wide. So we're going to select this, do apply. That does not apply nicely because you want to actually rotate it. So what we'll do, I'll use rotation here. This rotates in 45-degree increments. Just find one that lines up, and then we want to copy it over here. So we're going to do copy one to marked. All right, that lines up nicely now. Now we're going to go here. We're going to leave no decals on there. Let's do instead decal that runs all the way along the ceiling. All right. Oh, we want it to be on there too. So this is going to be a really good thing for showing how to do alignment across multiple sides. All right, almost it faces there. Let's go to VY. Okay, so these sets of decals, you got to sort of find the decal that fits the purpose for what you're doing. And you'll sort of learn these over time, but the V-wide ones touch the outside of a 4x4. So if we were to select any of these, let's apply it. Doesn't quite line up because it's oriented the wrong way. So I'd rotate it. So now it's oriented correctly. Let's copy that to all the marked ones. And it sort of gets you close to what you're looking for. Let's find a better decal that actually matches what we were doing before. Let's just do a nice simple one, or maybe a little more complex. There we go. All right, that's the decal I want. Now, this is a 4x4, and it doesn't slant, so it's going to line up just fine. This one is only 2 meters wide, so we need to do some clipping on it. So there's all these different clipping modes, but the 3 that really matter for most of yours are none, segment, and adjacent. When you're lining up 2 decals that go across a border of 2 sides and 2 segments, you often want to choose adjacent because that'll automatically choose the angle that's halfway between these 2 sides. And then that happens to line up perfectly whenever you have decals that are straight across. And most of these decals end up going straight across for this purpose so that they'll be clipped nicely. That goes for pipes and lots of other stuff and bars and all sorts of things. So that is the perfect alignment there. Now, we didn't clip here, but we should, because otherwise we'll actually get some Z fighting where the decal will be drawing here and there. Let's see if we can show that off a little bit. Let's turn on wireframe. There we go. You can see right here, you should usually have wireframe on when you're doing decals, so we're going to leave that on now. There's a line there, and there shouldn't be a line there. Instead, we're going to use perpendicular or segment. We're going to use segment because that generally works more consistently. We could also use adjacent. Either one works, but I'm going to use segment just because I know that goes straight up and down on this segment. All right, so now we need to come over to this one, and we're going to do the same sorts of alignment for all of those right there. We're going to mark them all. We're going to do repeat V, and that makes it repeat multiple times. We could go as many times as we want, but we only need 2 in this case. So we're going to go repeat 2. I'm using the right mouse button right and left mouse buttons to change these, or I can scroll. Generally just use the clicking though, when you're not changing a drastic amount. So we got to repeat V of 2, and we're going to change the clipping. We know that it's the top and bottom, or it's not. It's not the top and bottom, it's left and right. So the orientation of the sides that are on the top and bottom is often not what you'll expect, but you'll often have like textures that are vertically aligned, or not textures, but sides that are vertically aligned. They will use alignment that you expect more often. So these are rotated 90 degrees, so therefore we want to use the left and right clipping, and we were using right and left clipping for these. So I should have realized that this should be adjacent on left and right. Now we can also use these shortcut keys down here. Those are average. Average isn't that useful. We're going to change those buttons eventually. So adjacent, left, right. That'll just set all these correctly. Now we could do the same thing with those by selecting them and applying this stuff. This stuff only applies to the selected side. If we want to copy, we need to do copy 1 to marked. Now 1 means the first decal. You can have 2 decals on every side. We did copy, and that looks nice. Now this one actually works perfectly with the same settings, so we're going to copy it to there. And this, it's hard to see, but there's actually a tiny gap here because this doesn't tile, and we need it to tile in the V direction of this. Flip it on the blue side, and now that lines up perfectly. And that'll line up nicely in game. And it's clipping through the wall. You don't have to fix these sorts of issues, but if you want to, usually use segment. That'll usually work depending on how your geometry is built. And that prevents it from clipping outside, which you'd only see on the auto map. You wouldn't see it in gameplay. All right, so that is a nice thing. Let's make a pipe and put it on the middle of this because we want to have even more interesting geometry. We'll have the pipe stop there. So let's select that side. We're going to type in pipe. There we go. All right, we want the Titan pipes. Let's do some that are nice and straight. That one looks pretty good. Okay, so there's multiple pipe types, and usually like 3A and B and C and D, they all share some similarities. And usually there's one that tiles across, like 4A tiles across, and then 4B is an end cap if you want to stop it before it hits a wall. So we're going to use both of these types. But first we're going to apply this to all of them. And you'll notice I apply it to the wrong side, or the wrong decal. I need to apply it to 2. If I apply it to 1, it overwrites the ones that were there. So we're going to undo that. I think we're undoing it. Oh, it doesn't refresh the decals by default. Okay. All right, everything's fine now. We should fix that. All right, so we're going to apply to 2, and now stuff lines up, kind of. We're going to do very similar things. We got to select decal 2 here. If we're selecting 1, all this stuff is editing decal 1, but we need to select 2 here. It'll turn yellow. And now we need to set it so it tiles twice. And the clipping, we'll set it to adjacent for everything, copy it to everything because we know that works generally. If you have issues where this sort of thing is offset in a way that you don't like, you can use these offset buttons to move stuff around, but we don't have any clipping issues right there, so we're going to leave it alone. Oh, here we go. There's a nice example. So we're going to unmark things, make sure, and we're going to use offset. There we go. Now we're going to change the clipping on the orange side. Done. And that actually lines up perfectly. Good. All right, so now we're going to come down here, and this is not quite what we want. This is the one we want it to end on. So we're going to switch to 4B, apply to 2. It's still tiled. Let's undo that tiling. Now we need to rotate it around. And it flips just a little bit. We actually just want to use offset. So these values here, offset stuff in the U or V direction. It all is based on the orientation of the decal. So we want to move this down so it lines up. There we go. This pipe comes out and ends there. Let's rewind a little bit and go over all these functions, and then we'll go and do some more decal editing. Okay, so we're just going to place a decal on this side. Nice simple one. Let's go back to do a V wide. There we go. Nice and easy to see. Okay, so we're going to go over all these functions real fast. So alignment. It's based on the bottom side when you change to right, down, left, or up. You can also align to textures, which can be useful at times, but generally we don't use that. Usually center is what you want. or one of the edge alignments. And now let's go with rotation. This is real simple, 45-degree increments. Repeating, that makes it repeat in the U direction. This makes it repeat in the V direction. Usually for this sort of decal would repeat in the V direction, but it just depends on the shape of the decal. Again, these are vertical and wide, so they line up with the outside. But lines up perfectly with this segment is 8 meters wide, so it lines up when we tile it twice. All right, so offset, this shifts things by a quarter in the direction that you're choosing. So this is towards the right, this is towards the top by default, and negative is towards the bottom. And then let's make it tile. So clipping, adjacent, it's again splitting the difference of these two. Average is only taking into account the current segment. So if I wanted to same decal up here and I needed it to clip inward so that we don't get any Z fighting. We wouldn't get Z fighting with this decal in particular, but there are other decals we would. And we'd come up here, choose adjacent. Average is the one we really want. So when we have inward clipping stuff, we can use average. We don't normally need to use average. Usually adjacent does what we want in the cases where, so no clipping doesn't do anything to the side. Full clipping is a little bit buggy, but it will generally chop off parts of the decal if they are outside of the clipping area. And I think it goes by the center of the decal. It sort of depends. You have to play with it a little bit. All right, so perpendicular goes perpendicular to the side, no matter what the angle is. If your geometry is not refreshing, you need to push Enter, refresh the geometry. These decals don't update. It's a optimization because in large levels, it would take a long time to update all the decals. We really need a more extreme face for this demonstration. There we go. All right, now we can see the difference between perpendicular and segment. The perpendicular goes 90 degrees from the side that you're looking at. Segment flips directly to the other side in the segment. Average, like we said before, average of these two segment sides. And adjacent is the average of this side and the next side that is solid or has a decal on it. All right, so in this case, when you have this sort of edge, let's say this was the geometry we actually wanted to use, you will have to suffer a little bit of clipping through the world because there is no clipping type on here that handles this case. There's nothing that does clipping against the next adjacent side. Okay, and we can use the offset to get the amount of push through that we want. Like if we wanted nothing there, or we want here, and then we're going to place another decal at the top of this, we could use the offset to figure out where we want it. All right, and some of using decals is sort of figuring out how to cover up the limitations of the decal system. Let's go back, get rid of this, and we're going to continue doing decals on all this stuff because I think repetition is really the key to figuring out how the decal system works and how to use it appropriately. So I want a nice bar around the middle of this that's thick. So we're going to go here. Let's go back to rust only for now. Each bar. Let's find it. There we go. That one looks good. All right. So that's close, but not quite. You repeat. We need clipping on both sides. It's good. And then this clipping is not going to work, so we need to change this back to segment. Same for this over. So now we've got same decal, all three sides. It's repeating twice on all the sides and using different clipping amounts to make sure that it lines up perfectly. If we don't do all that, we'll have a gap in between these two edges, and we don't want gaps like that. We want it to look nice and solid and continuous. There are some decals that you don't need to do that sort of thing. Let's use a couple here. Some here as well. And those are the full decals. Now these decals cover the whole thing and they're not expected to tile. They have some extra faces in between the edges, which is fine in general. Okay. So that looks nice. Let's get a warning stripe on the bottom of this area and the top even. Let's do both. We're going to go to edge 3, which is a warning stripe I know of. You can tell that these segments are oriented the same way this way. They're not mirrored. But since we're going to put this on the top and bottom, we're going to apply 2, edge down, then we're going to go to this one, edge up. And so this one looks like what we want. So now we're going to copy 1 to marked. We're going to copy 2 to marked. And that is exactly what we were hoping for. Okay. So now we're going to go to this one. One thing I do when I'm building levels, even when I'm doing rough geometry, is I always put decals, edge decals, where it's transitioning from caves to man-made areas, and it just looks nicer that way. It makes it look like there is an intentional transition there. So we're going to use a nice thick one, too thick. There we go. That one's good. All right, so this is a case where we could just go with the default, but if we do, we're going to get some Z fighting, because these are perfectly flat across the top. You can actually see a little bit of it right there. There's a little bit of shimmer in the texture. That means you're getting Z fighting. It's usually more visible in the game than in the editor, but sometimes you can see it in the editor as well. So with these, all we got to do is do adjacent and copy it, and there's no more Z fighting because it perfectly aligns now with geometry. You will sometimes get a little bit of slight texture differences here, but generally it doesn't matter. It looks fine. All right, let's also put an edge at the top of this, so we'll just use a different edge. Something simple. I think that one's good. Apply to 2. You can't see it right now because it's actually under this decal, but I know it's there. Select 2. Align to edge up. Copy. And this is a decal where you don't have to use the clipping. And if you don't have to use clipping, then don't use it if you don't need it, because it actually creates fewer triangles not to use it. We're just going to leave it like it is there. All right. So now that I've used all, I can only have 2 decals on this face. So let's say I want some lights. I'll probably put a light here instead. And this is a good time to talk about lights real fast. We've already got these lights here. I actually don't want them there. That doesn't look very nice. And to get rid of a decal, you just hide it. It's essentially the same thing as not having it there. But it's sort of nice to have it in case you want to change it back. It's just an easier way of remembering stuff. So let's do lights. Use an edge light. Those and point up and down. Now the lights, I like to just use white by default and then change them later to be one of the colors. So the light ones are usually the last one in the list for the same types of different colors. In this case, it's F. I don't want that light to point up, I want it to point down. So we could do it one of 2 ways. We could do the rotation, or we could do the alignment. In this case, I think I actually want to do rotation. And again, and this is actually perfectly valid as well. You could put something on one side and have it overlap and push into another side. And this is perfectly valid. It's another way to get more decals to sort of cheat the system. But in this case, I actually want it to be centered. There we go. Now we'll have a nice light pointing downward. Let's put one on this side as well. We can't put it on one. We've already got something there. We'll apply it to 2. Let's bring it up there. Okay. Now if you select a decal or select a side and it doesn't have a valid entry for one of these two, it'll automatically select the other one. So if I select this side, it automatically selects decal 1. If I come here, it automatically selects decal 1. And this has both decals valids. It won't select number 2. That's just something good to know, because you will sometimes end up selecting a side and not be on the decal that you think you should be editing. Just something to watch out for. All right, let's go here. I feel like this needs a decal going up and down here. Let's go with pipes again. This one is going to be tricky, and I'll explain why. I'm just going to kill the filter because I know where I want to be. No, pipes are down here. Let's go with a nice simple pipe like that one. Now we want it vertically aligned. Let's move it using offset. We're actually going to select this one up here because this is what we want to edit. That's fine. We'll set the clipping to segment. And now making this line up is actually going to be nearly impossible because these things are using look at these lines right here. This side is 5 tall on average. You look at the center line. So being 5 meters tall, the alignment is going to be different than this one, which is 4 meters tall and is 2.5 meters down. So there's multiple ways we could do this. One way to avoid the issue is just to only use this side to actually place the decal. So we're going to do that. We're going to get rid of these decals here. Actually, I'll do it 2 different ways. I'll do it one way on this side and one way on the other side. This way, we're going to just get rid of that. And we're going to place this pipe on 2. Got to rotate this around. Need to offset it. There we go. And now that's lined up. Now let's do a slightly different type of pipe over here that also is nicely aligned. We're going to line it to the right, and then when we do that, it doesn't quite touch the ceiling here, so we're going to slide it up. We're going to use segment clipping. Now you'll notice those are not perfectly aligned, but we're okay with that because we're just showing 2 different ways of doing it. All right, so we've got these pipes. They're a little bit different in their alignment, but we're okay with that. We just want to show 2 different techniques. One is using 2 decals on the same side, and one is using alignment to a common edge that we know lines up. So both of these are aligned to edge right or edge left. We could use edge right for this one. Let's bring it back, get it around. Where are you at? Here you are. There we go. So if we align to a common edge or align to edges that we know line up, then we can make the decals line up by using the offsets and some rotation. And it's a little bit tricky to get a handle on that. So I generally recommend using 2 decals on one side if you can, if you run into this situation. Alrighty. Let's go here. I'm just going to place a light at the top of this area. Change that texture. That's fine. It's this light again. Texture. Not that texture. This texture. Apply it. There we go. All right, now let's show the same texture. And let's make this wall have a nice decal all the way down the middle of it. Share it with that one. Let's not put it on those. Now I'm avoiding putting a decal on this side because you're going to fly right past this side. And you want to be careful sometimes about adding decals to sides that you're going to be interacting with a lot. So if you put a thick decal on this side or this side, you might run into it, especially when you're flying straight past this direction. Okay, so let's apply the V-wide or V-bars. Let's use one of these. That one looks good. And you notice it has a texture here that doesn't match this. That's because it's another one of those level textures, and it just doesn't know which texture to use correctly in the decal view. All right, so these look good up here. Let's unmark those. These down here, we want them to tile. And I'm going to just have them clip to the segment. Perfect. Now, this segment happens to be straight across, so we can just use segment clipping for that. It doesn't clip through because we use segment there. That was nice and easy. Sometimes decals are easy, especially when you keep your geometry perpendicular in some way. All right, let's do some lights. Side, smaller. That's good enough. Let's do the tile 2. Let's say we decide, oh, we want it to here and there. We can just it again. Doesn't have to be on the side that you're applying it from in order to be valid. This is still perfectly valid. This geometry shows up. The game doesn't care. All right, we're going to take a quick break. All right, we're back and we're doing more decals. Let's see what else we need to do to make this level look really nice, and then we'll convert it. We need a edge along here because there's a nice drop off. That should have a warning stripe or something like that. I'm actually not going to use a warning stripe because if I did, it probably wouldn't line up along these corners here where it bends because the UVs wouldn't quite line up. So we'll just use a simple wide edge. That would be all right. It's too great. Let's do this one. Do the gray variant. Just variation there. There we go. Copy that. Again, this needs to be repeating because it's too wide. Use some clipping. I got the wrong ones on those. There we go. Making mistakes in decal mode is a pretty common thing. You just have to figure out exactly what you want and then keep going and get there eventually. There we go. So we got a nice little bevel there for the drop off. Let's see, what else do we need? We could use a light back here. We'll use this light. Look at that. Button. And I want it to come outward actually. So we're rotation. Let's put it out there. Let's put a decal on the back here. Let's do something a little funky. Do V wide, actually a V bar is what I'm looking for. Something not too thick. One maybe? Actually that looks so good, let's just keep that rather than doing something funky. Do a subtle edge on this side. There we go, let's do that. Now remember we've already got decal on this, so we got to apply it to 2. There we go. Oh, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Let's check everything over one more time. That looks. Anything else we're going to need? I don't think so. Let's convert this and get into the game and see how it looks. I think the only thing we might want is more lighting, I guess. There. Get that. Wrong side. There we go. More bit there. Ooh, here we go. We can push it. Let's put here. I don't know, non-symmetry is always fine. There, got lights there. Alright. Looks pretty good. I guess I'll show caves real fast because decals and caves are a little less reliable. Our decal system does not take into account deformation, which means what you place, it'll be exactly where you see it, but the deformation may change the shape of the geometry enough that it clips into the wall or is floating off of the wall. So let's find the cave lights. There they are. Apply one there. See, by default, this clips through on purpose. Let's do a few more back here just to get some light in this area. So there. I'm doing more than I probably normally would just to show how these might be clipping. Do one small fix here. I don't know last time we converted this. I'm gonna edit the tree. There we go. Okay, so we've got decals. Is there anything else we need to do? Yeah, let's get into game and see how it looks. Save it. Yeah, Control S there. And we're gonna go to export single player level. I'll see you in the game. This will just take a few seconds and then start up the game and see how it looks. Alright, we're in the game. We're going to play this. Take a look at all the decals. Alright, they worked. See that decal there? That. There's light decals we placed back here. Edge, the lights and the warning stripes. Yeah, overall this looks pretty nice and you barely even notice any difference between these two sides. I want to show these sides right here because I didn't look at them last time, but see the triangle base of these a little bit, the sort of reflection probe there. And those give you the most space possible. We could edit this geometry over here to make those flat, like on this side, or not. Let's go take a look in the caves over time. This is a nice transition from the man-made area to the caves. It's hard to use, but again, those also create more stuff for you to run into, which is probably fine when you're transitioning to an area like this. Just be aware that you don't want too many of these thick decals in areas you're going to be flying past a lot. In a single player level, it's not a big deal because you won't always be flying quite so smoothly and quickly. But in a challenge mode level or a multiplayer level, you'll want to make sure you have a wide opening if you ever use a decal this thick. That also reminds me one more thing. When you're doing decals, the AI has no clue about what decals are. So that's why most of the decals are pretty close to these sides. So it could theoretically run into these pipes up here. But just be aware that the AI doesn't really know about decals. So they know if there's decal across a face or across the side, like if there were a decal blocking, they know about that, but they don't know about decals along the edges of things. Here we go, let's look at the... So this algorithm here generates pretty flat, fly outside. It's not what I want to do. It's our cheat code, flying outside the world. It's astral. There we go. That's a good cheat code to use where you can check the geometry a little bit from different angles. So this cave algorithm actually works really well with these decals because it generates pretty flat ceilings and floors, whereas most of the deformation is in the sides of the walls. This worked out pretty well. Let's turn that off. All right, nice and smooth. Things looking good. I guess I realized that we have not shown decals that go across a face, so we're gonna go back into the game and build an extra little part to this level and play right there in a little recessed area that has a decal across the face. All right, let's go and do that. All right, so we're gonna do it on this one right here. We're going to create a little recess there, not too thick. Let's do some quick texturing on this again. Square. That's what we'll use there. That's fine. Yep. Okay, so we're going to put a decal across here, and we'll do some recessed lighting too. Hold on. So, we'll do top and bottom. We'll use that decal. Get decal, apply it. All right, so now we want, that's the right side. We want to put something across here. So we're going to look at the full decals. Now some of these decals don't have a backside, but most of them do. There's some that don't. That one does. Look right here, there's no backside to that. So you don't want to place that one on this unless you use it on both sides. So here, we'll do that real fast. There. And there. Now it's covering both sides. You can see there's actually two decals here, so let's hide those. And let's just use one instead. So there's full. There's also these frame ones, which are used for fans mostly. So if I put a decal like that on that side, robots will think that they cannot pathfind through here, even though it looks like you actually could fly through there quite easily. We're going to use one that actually looks like it belongs. Here, do a nice cross one. There we go. All right, so let's save it, convert it, and we'll go check that out in game, and then we'll be done with decals for now. All right, we're in game. Let's go check out our new decal. All right, there it is. Got a nice cross decal, top and bottom. One thing to note about these cross decals is they block visibility, but those sorts of things. You gotta be careful with these on portals or chunking, which we'll get into another time, but these types especially can block visibility. You can end up with weird behavior. So just be careful using these. You probably only want to use them for recesses and not for blocking off one area to the next. Some of the other ones that are more open are better for that. It's because the four corners here, 1, 2, 3, center are all blocked, and it uses the center and the corners to check visibility between different segments to determine what can see what. So you gotta be careful using these. This case is fine because there's nothing else really behind there. If I were going to do more to this level, I'd probably add another decal there, and then you can see we got an extra decal here. So when we copy and pasted, it doesn't rebuild the, or not copy and pasted, but we inserted a new segment. It automatically copies the decals, but it doesn't regenerate them right away when we do that, just to speed things up. So you gotta be careful about phantom decals popping into your world. All right, that's all we have for now. Join us next time. Check out what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking at lighting. We're going to do some more advanced lighting. So we probably won't use this level. We'll use a different level that has a little bit more geometry and stuff going on, and we'll just light it from beginning to end. All right, see you guys next time.